Have you ever watched a tank rumbling across the screen and wondered how much of that chaos actually came from real missions? Some movies stretch the truth, others stay surprisingly close, and a few balance fact with bold storytelling. Today we're heading inside steel giants, exploring crews who faced impossible moments, and directors who tried to capture them. Get ready for a countdown where real history and Hollywood ambition collide in unforgettable ways. Number 12. T-34, 2018. T-34 is a high-energy war adventure that mixes real armored tactics with a dramatic escape story set during the Second World Conflict. The film draws inspiration from true accounts of Soviet tank crews who were captured and held in enemy camps. Some of these crews were forced to repair damaged vehicles or assist with testing, and their stories hinted at rare chances to break free. T-34 takes those fragments and reshapes them into a focused tale about one determined crew fighting against impossible odds. The realism shows most clearly in the tank action. The film uses real battlefield concepts, such as angling armor, using cover, planning ricochet shots, and keeping the machine moving even when damaged. Operators from that era often wrote about how survival depended on calm nerves and quick choices, and the movie respects that idea. Inside the tank, the crew talks, argues, and works together exactly the way real teams described. The more dramatic parts are the escape sequences. Real prisoners rarely had access to a working tank, let alone a chance to operate one under guard. The movie heightens these moments to keep the tension strong. Still, the emotional core is grounded in truth. The loyalty between crew members, their stubborn hope, and their understanding that knowledge of their machine was their only advantage. T-34 blends accuracy with style, creating a story that honors real tank crews while delivering an exciting cinematic ride. Number 11. Battle of the Bulge, 1965. Battle of the Bulge is a sweeping Hollywood take on one of the most intense winter offensives of the Second World Conflict. The real Battle of the Bulge took place in dense forests and icy small towns, but the movie uses broad, open landscapes due to filming limitations of the era. This change makes the action look larger and clearer for the audience, even if it moves away from strict accuracy. Still, the film grounds itself in several real events. The sudden winter push by German armored forces, the confusion among American troops, and the struggle for fuel supplies all come from true battlefield reports. The movie's main antagonist is loosely inspired by Colonel Joachim Peiper, whose armored units moved with speed and confidence during the early days of the offensive. Crews who faced these forces remembered the shock of their arrival, and the movie captures that sense of surprise. The tank duels themselves lean toward dramatic presentation. Real armored clashes in 1944 were often messy, hidden by snow and limited visibility. The film instead gives viewers clean lines of sight, large formations, and heightened moments of tension. Even with this Hollywood approach, the spirit of the event survives. You feel the pressure of defending thin lines and the difficulty of fighting in harsh conditions. Battle of the Bulge succeeds as a large-scale interpretation rather than a perfect reconstruction. It pays respect to the crews involved while shaping the story into something visually bold for its time. Number 10. Saints and Soldiers, The Void, 2014. Saints and Soldiers. The Void takes viewers into the closing days of the Second World Conflict, focusing on an American crew operating an M18 Hellcat. This vehicle was known for its speed and light frame, and real crews relied on quick movement rather than heavy armor. The movie uses this truth as its foundation, showing the Hellcat moving fast, flanking opponents, and striking from positions that favored agility. The setting is based on late war Europe, a time when roads were crowded with civilians, retreating units, and scattered groups still resisting. Operators describe this period as unpredictable, with danger sometimes appearing in the quietest moments. The film captures that uneasy feeling, blending calm stretches with sudden bursts of action. The uncertainty is one of its strongest realistic elements. Where the movie takes creative steps is in the intensity of certain confrontations. While Hellcats did face heavier vehicles, real crews avoided direct clashes whenever possible. The film occasionally lets the Hellcat stay exposed longer than history would suggest, but this is done to build tension and highlight the bravery of the characters. The teamwork feels genuine, with clear communication and shared responsibility inside the vehicle. The strength of The Void lies in its grounded perspective. It is not a grand battlefield epic, but a smaller story set against a massive turning point. By focusing on a single crew, it shows how ordinary operators had to navigate the chaos, protect each other, and finish their mission even when the war was nearly over. Number 9. Sahara, 1943. Sahara is one of the earliest films to capture the atmosphere of desert warfare, and much of its story is shaped by true events from the North African campaign. It follows a lone American tank crew operating an M3 Lee as they cross harsh desert terrain, searching for water, safety, and a way to slow down enemy forces. Real crews in North Africa dealt with extreme heat, sand-clogged machinery, and long stretches of isolation, and the movie reflects these hardships with surprising accuracy for its time. One of the most authentic details is how the tank behaves. Operators wrote about how desert conditions strained engines and reduced visibility. Sahara shows the crew constantly battling this environment, checking equipment, adjusting routes, and adapting to whatever obstacles vehicles appear. The setting becomes a real threat, equal to any human opponent. The final standoff in the film is inspired by several small real-world actions, where small groups held strategic positions against larger forces. While Sahara condenses multiple events into a single dramatic moment, the idea of outnumbered crews using clever positioning to gain an edge is firmly grounded in truth. Tank crews often relied on terrain and timing more than raw force. The movie's emotional appeal comes from its focus on endurance. It highlights how determination, cooperation, and awareness of the environment often mattered more than strength alone. Sahara remains a respected classic because it respects the reality of desert warfare, while crafting an engaging story around a crew pushing through one of the toughest landscapes on Earth. Number 8. White Tiger, 2012. White Tiger stands out because it blends real tank warfare with symbolic storytelling, inspired by the Eastern Front during the final year of the Second World Conflict. The film follows a Soviet tank operator who survives a devastating attack and is assigned to track down a mysterious enemy heavy tank. This idea comes from real reports where crews described facing Tigers that seemed impossible to damage. In the confusion of combat, these machines gained almost mythical reputations. The movie uses this real sense of fear and misunderstanding as the basis for its story. Soviet tank crews often wrote about sudden appearances of enemy armor, the difficulty of spotting vehicles through smoke and mud, and the nerve-wracking silence before a duel. White Tiger captures these feelings beautifully. The landscapes, ruined towns, and chaotic battlefields mirror historical photographs and descriptions. The symbolic part of the story comes from the portrayal of the White Tiger itself. In reality, tigers were powerful machines with strong armor and long-range accuracy. They were not supernatural, but the film uses their fearsome reputation to explore how war shapes memory and imagination. This gives the story a dreamlike tone while staying grounded in the emotional truth of the era. Inside the T-34, the crew behaves like real operators would, communicating constantly, relying on instinct and trusting one another in tight moments. Even with its dramatic symbolism, White Tiger offers a sincere look at the tension that defined tank duels on the Eastern Front. Number 7. Patton, 1970. Patton mixes battlefield excitement with character study, focusing on a commander whose strategies shaped armored warfare during the Second World Conflict. While the film covers many parts of his career, its tank scenes are rooted in real events such as the battles at El Guetar and the armored push across Sicily. These moments highlight Patton's strong belief in mobility, speed, and initiative, traits that appear throughout the movie. The realism shows in the movement of the armored units. Patton encouraged quick advances, often moving his forces faster than expected. Crews described these operations as exhausting but effective. The movie mirrors this approach with large sweeping shots of tanks crossing desert terrain or rolling through rugged landscapes. While the scenery is adjusted for filming, the sense of momentum matches real accounts. Hollywood adds flavor by sharpening rivalries and tightening timelines. Confrontations are arranged for dramatic tension, and some speeches are written to enhance the cinematic version of Patton's personality. However, the leadership style, confidence, and insistence on discipline all reflect his real behavior. Tank engagements in the film, though simplified, still show important truths. Visibility was limited, communication was constant, and movement mattered more than standing still. Patton's belief that bold action could break through enemy lines is shown through every armored sequence. The film succeeds not because every detail is exact, but because it captures the philosophy behind real armored operations, offering a portrait of determination and strategy that left a lasting mark on military history. Number 6. The Beast of War, 1988. The Beast of War follows a Soviet T-55 crew lost in the mountains of Afghanistan, drawing from real stories of tank units that became separated during the early stages of the conflict. These crews described the terrain as unpredictable, the climate as punishing, and the communication challenges as constant. The film takes these grounded elements and turns them into a tense, character-driven journey of survival. Inside the tank, the realism comes through in the crew dynamics. Operators depended on cooperation for every task, from navigation to repairs. When leadership faltered or tensions rose, the entire team suffered. The movie portrays this with emotional accuracy, highlighting the pressure of operating in tight quarters under stress. The crew argues, adapts, and pushes forward, mirroring real accounts of how demanding armored work became in remote areas. The dramatic chase in the story is heightened for tension. Real Soviet forces faced resistance from local fighters, but rarely in such continuous pursuit. Still, the film captures the feeling of being outmaneuvered by opponents who knew the terrain better. The rocky passes, sudden ambushes, and long marches resemble actual conditions that crews documented in diaries and interviews. The tank itself becomes a compelling presence. Its engine noise, weight, and limited mobility in the mountains make every mile feel earned. Even with Hollywood shaping the plot, The Beast of War presents an honest emotional picture of how isolation and uncertainty tested real crews far from home. Number 5. Lebanon, 2009. Lebanon offers one of the most immersive portrayals of tank warfare ever filmed, largely because it is based on the director's real experiences as a gunner during the Lebanon conflict of 1982. Almost the entire movie is seen from inside the tank, creating a claustrophobic perspective that mirrors what operators described: darkness, noise, and narrow lines of sight that force split-second decisions. The realism is strongest in the way the crew communicates. Voices overlap, orders come quickly, and everyone relies on trust. Operators often said visibility inside a tank was incredibly limited, and Lebanon shows exactly how confusing it can be to interpret a battlefield through a small scope or hatch. The moments of stillness, tension, and fear feel painfully authentic. To keep the story moving, the film compresses events and intensifies encounters. In reality, long stretches of waiting were common, and crews often spent hours advancing only a short distance. The movie adjusts this pacing to maintain dramatic flow, but the emotional truth remains intact. The smells, sounds, and cramped space reflect first-hand memories. Lebanon succeeds because it highlights the psychological weight of armored work, rather than focusing only on action. The crew must function as a single unit even when uncertainty rises. Every sound outside the steel hull feels threatening, and every movement inside affects the next decision. It is a grounded, intimate look at how operators experienced pressure, confusion, and responsibility during one of the most complex periods in the region's history. Number 4. Fury, 2014. Fury delivers a raw portrayal of an American Sherman crew during the final phase of the Second World Conflict. The film draws heavily from real diaries and accounts, showing the cramped interior, constant noise, and teamwork needed to keep the vehicle running. Many historical reports describe how crews spent long days inside the machine, repairing parts on the move and dealing with exhaustion. Fury captures this lived-in feeling with impressive attention to detail. The Sherman in the film behaves like the real machine, dependable but outmatched by heavier enemy vehicles. Operators often wrote that victory depended on planning, teamwork, and clever positioning rather than sheer strength. The movie portrays these ideas accurately, with the crew using coordination and quick thinking rather than relying on exaggerated power. The major Hollywood addition is the dramatic final stand. While real crews did face overwhelming pressure late in the war, the movie heightens the odds and sharpens the pacing for emotional impact. Even with this, the core feeling is authentic. The exhaustion, fear, and determination reflect what real operators documented near the end of the conflict. Fury's strength lies in its respect for both the people and the machine. The mud, smoke, and constant stress feel genuine. The relationships inside the tank, shaped by long months of shared danger, ring true as well. The result is a grounded, intense portrayal of the final push into Germany, carried by a crew that refuses to give up. Number 3. Kursk, The Battle, 2018. Kursk, The Battle revisits the massive confrontation of 1943, focusing on the Eastern Front during one of the largest armored engagements in history. The film aims to show the immense pressure placed on Soviet crews as they prepared defensive positions across wide stretches of terrain. Real records describe layered trenches, fortified zones, and long fields filled with hidden dangers. The movie reflects these preparations with impressive accuracy. The T-34 tanks in the film behave like their historical counterparts. Crews appreciated their simple design, strong mobility, and reliability, especially during intense operations. The film's portrayal of these machines reflects this pride, showing them moving through dust, smoke, and chaotic landscapes that resemble real photographs from the time. Hollywood influence appears in the timeline. The real battle lasted weeks, with separate clashes happening miles apart. The film compresses the story into key events, so viewers can follow a small group of characters more easily. Battles are moved closer together, and dramatic turning points happen faster than in real life. Even with this reshaping, the film captures the essential truth. Tank crews faced overwhelming pressure and constant uncertainty. The fields were loud, crowded, and full of smoke. Communication had to be fast. Decisions had to be made with limited information. Kursk, The Battle succeeds by honoring the determination of the crews who took part in one of the conflict's most significant turning points. Number 2. 1944, 2015. 1944 presents a tense look at the summer battles fought in Estonia during the Second World Conflict, focusing on how shifting control of the region placed Estonian soldiers on different sides of the same front line. Many of the tank sequences reflect real armored clashes that took place in forests, small towns, and muddy fields, where visibility and maneuvering were constant challenges. The tanks in the film move realistically through rough terrain. Operators wrote about how tree lines limited vision and how mud slowed vehicles to a crawl. Engines overheated, tracks slipped, and communication grew harder whenever terrain became dense. The film uses these true elements to build an honest sense of struggle as the crews push through unpredictable landscapes. To keep the narrative tight, the movie intensifies certain confrontations. While real armored engagements in Estonia sometimes unfolded slowly, the film raises the urgency to show the emotional weight carried by the crews. Their decisions, movements, and teamwork reflect accounts from operators who served in similar conditions. What makes 1944 especially meaningful is the emotional layer added by the setting. Estonian crews sometimes found themselves facing people from their own country. Due to external control, the tanks become symbols of difficult choices rather than just machines. By blending truth with sharpened pacing, the film captures both the conflict and the complicated human stories behind it. Number 1. Kelly's Heroes, 1970. Kelly's Heroes blends light adventure with a surprisingly grounded portrayal of tank crews in the later stages of the Second World Conflict. While the tone is playful, the armored action draws from real experiences of Sherman operators in France. France, who often encountered heavier enemy vehicles that needed careful planning to overcome. The tank duels in the film are inspired by true challenges. Shermans were lighter than the enemy's heavy armor, so crews relied on teamwork, positioning, and patience. Operators frequently mentioned that rushing into battle was dangerous. Instead, they flanked, coordinated angles, and used the landscape to gain advantages. Kelly's Heroes mirrors this approach, showing the tanks working together rather than charging recklessly. Hollywood adds flair through character interactions and timing, giving the story a fun rhythm. Real battles were far more chaotic, but the film captures the spirit of a crew that trusts each other completely. The way the operators talk, plan, and support one another matches many real accounts from the period. The machines themselves behave believably. The Shermans move steadily, communicate constantly, and respond to terrain exactly as historical reports describe. Kelly's Heroes may not be the darkest or most intense film on this list, but it remains a charming blend of humor, teamwork, and grounded armored action that reflects the real challenges faced by tank crews in 1944. And that wraps up our journey through 12 tank movies that blended real missions with cinematic imagination. Some stayed close to history, some took creative leaps, but each carried pieces of truth shaped by the people who lived through those moments. If you enjoyed this breakdown, share your thoughts in the comments and hit subscribe for more deep dives. Now tell me, which film felt closest to reality and which surprised you the most?